Okay, let me begin by saying hello and thanking everybody very much for joining us this afternoon for the latest in Ludenzo's Future of Textbooks webinar series. Over the next 45 minutes, we're going to be looking at the topic, AR for educational publishers, is it just a gimmick or a genuine tool for transformation? My name is Jonathan Viner. I'll be moderating today's session. I'm an EdTech consultant and a regular commentator, speaker and writer on global EdTech trends. It's great to be with you all this afternoon. Thank you also to our great speakers joining us today, Lewis, Els and Eirik. We've shared their bios with you before the event, but I will ask them all to give you a brief intro when they speak shortly. All of them will talk to the topic I've just mentioned for about 8 or so minutes, and then we'll bring everything together for a panel discussion and to answer your questions at the end. It would therefore be hugely helpful and appreciated if you could just add your company name to your profile. You can see Lewis, Els and Eirik have all done that, but it just makes it really easy so that we know who you are and where you work on your questions. As you will have seen, our session today is being recorded. We will be sharing the session with everybody on this call afterwards, and also with everybody that registered for the call. And just to reiterate, we're aiming to finish by 4:45 UK time this afternoon. If you have any other questions, please do drop them into the chat and we can pick them up as we go. But I will be asking for questions a bit later for the panel, so do keep them in mind for then. But without any further ado, let's get underway, and I'm going to ask Eirik Wahlstrøm, the CEO of Ludenzo, to kick us off. Eirik, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jonathan, and I'm happy to speak to you all today, and thank you for coming. My name is Eirik, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Ludenzo, and I'm naturally very passionate about how augmented reality can be used for educational purposes. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about why augmented reality is relevant for every publisher. I'm also going to talk a little bit about what AR and VR is, why it hasn't really taken off yet, and how it now can be used as a more scalable way to promote better learning outcomes. So let's get to it. With me today, I also have Ingrid, which is the co-founder and CMO, and I know that Harald is also in the audience. We founded Ludenzo a couple of years ago with the mission to empower every educator and learner with augmented reality, and quickly gained some traction with, among others, the co-founders of Kahoot that believed in our mission to make learning more engaging and fun. So that's great, and I think motivation and engagement is one thing, and it's definitely a big problem to tackle. If you look at studies from the US high school, you can see that 85% of all students today are not motivated by the learning materials. And as many as 45% of all high school students are also chronically disengaged from school. That's a massive number. And you can imagine that this would have looked kind of different if the classroom looked more like this. I mean, I would have loved to learn like that, and but unfortunately, we're a couple of decades away from this reality per se. But we are still at the point of time where augmented reality can have really beneficial outcomes for learning for medical purposes, where students can go and explore the moon, which is now increased relevancy in these times, and also just to seamlessly connect the physical and digital world of learning together, blending the physical universe with the digital universe in a seamless way. Like here, for example, in the book, it's about the first dinosaurs that lived in the world, and then the students can explore and bring this to life with digital assets, seeing how these first dinosaurs most likely look like. Just to do a quick description of the different terms. So virtual reality, like you saw in the moon experience, is when you're completely immersed in a digital or virtual environment. And augmented reality is when you're blending the physical and digital world together. And for the remainder of this presentation and also the other presentations, we will focus primarily on augmented reality. And And then the big question comes, why do you need an augmented reality strategy? And the question is not that simple. It's more like, why does every company need an augmented reality strategy? And it's not really me who says that. That's Harvard Business Review that was posted back in 2017. And it's becoming increasingly relevant as the technology adoption has just gone one way since 2017. You see, in 2017, there was around 500 million devices that were AR capable. And today there's more than 3 billion. And that number is rapidly increasing. In addition, how we have been now become to use our smartphones as our everyday computer where we can access everything, that will most likely be replaced in the future, maybe in 10 years, maybe in 20 years, by glasses more like what Lewis and Jonathan is currently wearing. And in that transition, it's most likely going to be powered, AR is most likely going to be powered by mobile devices such as phones and iPads. But again, where the technology is going and how big the market is, that's not so relevant for this group of people. It's more like, how can we combat this problem? How can we make students more motivated and engaged in the classroom? And based on our initial findings, we see a huge improvement in motivation and engagement. I know Ingrid was just in Ireland earlier today testing it out in the classroom with students. And on average, we get around 95 to 100% of the students saying that they're more motivated and engaged when using AR in the classroom. That's more than a 10 times increase of how the situation is today. And there's now coming as well more and more research showing how augmented reality have a beneficial impact on especially learners that have cognitive difficulties, and also those with dyslexia or dyscalculia. And we're also conducting some pretty exciting research on this at the moment, with among others the University of Oslo and University in Stavanger. I forgot this is a funny slide, but it's like, why hasn't AR taken off yet if it's so great? And I think the three main barriers to AR's widespread adoption today is really the price. It's been very costly to make. It's been hard to scale, and it's also not been the greatest user experience yet. And if you look closer into how the AR content production has been made, it's been typically made by powerful game engines, which is quite complex and heavy to use, where you really needed to be a developer or have deep technical understanding in if you wanted to make something. And this is a crucial thing because it takes the power from the pedagogical experts and the subject matter experts and place it into the hands of the developers or the tech teams. So I'm guessing that many of you as publishers have done some initial testing with AR, and that you outsource that to an agency or a consultancy that did this for you, actually removing the pedagogical value and thus creating more of a gimmickry experience than what it would be if the publisher, you would have the capacity to do this in-house. So what we have done is that we made a platform that empowers the publishers themselves to be AR content producers, which I'm sure that Lewis and Els will maybe talk a little bit about. But for this purpose, I'm going to show you how this can help take the content production time of creating something in AR from 2 weeks to just 2 minutes. And for that reason, I've chosen one of the Cambridge titles we've been working on, Lewis, where you see the Ludenso Studio. And that's just a web application where the editor can go in, see the PDF that has been uploaded and transported into image targets. And then it's just drag and dropping the 3D models where you want them. And you can search up what kind of model you would like to put in, scale up the size, rotate it as you want. And then you can view it in the inspection field, how this would look like in AR. So that's done in seconds, not hours, and you don't need any technical expertise. You can also use this to link to more digital content. So in this example, there's great content on how the fish circulatory system works. Well, then just copy that content in and take a title to it. And now the learner, if they scan this page, they can just click on that and they gain direct access to what they're wanting to see. In this example with the heart, you see also an example of how labels are being used to explain the hard to grasp concepts in more detail, where the authors and editors can really, based on the level of the students, explain more or less what the different topics are. And you can also have more than one 3D model at the same page. So yeah, I think that this is starting to look pretty cool. I would have liked to read this book if I was a student. But the last feature I wanted to show is also just a video, where if you want to embed a video, meaning that it's playing directly on the page where it is, you can just take an MP4 file, insert it into the content, give it a title, and then this will play on the page, being an embedded view of it. And then you can also link to more resources if you so want to, in this case from the NHS. So yeah, that's a very short demo. 2 minutes is what this took to develop, to enrich a small chapter of one of the Cambridge's books. So yeah, that's what all I wanted to say, Jonathan. Looking forward to the panel discussion after, and I'm very excited to hear what Els and Lewis have to say.
Thanks, Eirik. That's brilliant, and leads us seamlessly into, we've had a glimpse there, Lewis, of the work that you're doing with Ludenso, but I'm going to hand over to you to talk us through your thoughts on the question and to discuss a little bit more about the work that Cambridge are doing in this space. So, Lewis, if you can begin with just a brief intro, and then the floor is yours. Over to you.
Certainly. Let me just try and multitask as I do this, and hopefully it should come through in just 1 second. So hi everyone, I am Lewis Birchon. Can someone give me a shout when you can see my screen? Yes,
good.
Excellent. Good. I'm Lewis Birchon. I'm the head of publishing solutions at Cambridge Partnership for Education. Cambridge Partnership for Education is part of Cambridge University Press and Assessment. And just to kind of give you a bit of detail about our team and the way that we work specifically with ministries of education or other kind of third parties on, I guess, what you best describe as project work. So we work on large-scale programs of education transformation that are adjacent to the main business, but we operate separate from it in the sense that we don't necessarily use the same infrastructure. We might use the same content, but we don't necessarily use the same back-end systems. So if I'm trying to be a bit cool when I describe us, I call us a skunk works. So, you know, we are able to innovate and do stuff that's a little bit different, a little bit outside of business as usual. And that's actually one of the great things that we've been able to do with Ludenso over the past couple of months, actually, is kind of innovate and work a bit differently. But I wanted to kind of try to talk to the question today of whether AR is a gimmick or whether we can make it more purposeful by kind of explaining a bit about the journey that we've been on in Cambridge with AR. So I was kind of racking my brains back through the ways in which we've kind of experimented with AR style technology. And actually the first example I could find was back in 2014. We were heading up towards a big curriculum reform in the UK. There's a part of Cambridge, we've got a line of school Shakespeare titles, and there's a big trade show each year in the UK called BET. And naturally we wanted something a bit flash to show off at BET in order to get people onto our stand, get people interested in the kind of stuff that we would be publishing in the next couple of years. Unfortunately, I couldn't find examples of the cards we produced, but we produced some Top Trumps cards, legally different, I'm sure. But if you wanted to compare which characters had the kind of greatest amount of comedy, or who had the strongest feast game, Banquo or Titus Andronicus, you had these cards, And a couple of the cards, if you scan them through a mobile app, would show you some videos that we had. So we had some assets in the background, and we used the cards as a way of accessing those videos. And definitely at that stage, 2014, full gimmick, unashamedly so, because we were trying to get people interested in what we were doing. But then if you fast forward to 2020, and this was in the middle of the pandemic, we'd had a long-standing relationship with the Ministry of Education in the UAE. Schools around the world were shut, and we were having a discussion with them about what they were doing to provide education to children while they were at home. And one of the initiatives that the Ministry of Education come up with was UAE Storytime. And so that was a live broadcast. I think they're doing it either once a day or once a week at 7 o'clock. And they were having stories read out with the storybook pages on screen. And they were using AR objects to try and add a bit of interest, make the story kind of come to life for students. And so we partnered on a kind of Cambridge edition version of this, and actually all the stories are still available online on YouTube. So if you go and have a look at UAE Storytime, there are about 7 different editions with Cambridge using the Cambridge Reading Adventures. So we actually got one of our authors, in fact several of our authors, to read out their stories. So each half-hour program then kind of featured a QR code. You could scan it, and there would be an object that kind of appeared in your room, which means that I now need to talk about the elephant in the room, which is there. So what we ended up doing was, with these stories, getting children to scan it, take photos, and because it was live, and because we had a hashtag and so on, we were able to use stuff like Instagram and Twitter to kind of share photos from UA Storytime. So actually it was quite a good way of getting kids engaged and kind of feeling like they were part of a community, even when they were working remotely. So actually, in that instance, I think we kind of started to realize that you can use AR to think about learning in a kind of slightly different way, and kind of make it a bit more interactive and a bit more participatory. And so, it's not quite Wales in a classroom, but it's actually possibly did have Wales in the classroom, I'm not sure. But it's really kind of making it much more engaging. And so when we started conversations with Ludenso earlier this year, we'd got a bit of experience. We'd thought a bit about how AR might work. And I was really excited when Eirik and Ingrid showed me the Builder Studio and the way in which it was really simple, actually, to kind of start adding objects onto a flat page. I think as publishers, we've often thought about the textbook spread as a way of navigating to interactive content. And actually that's just one step away, or one step beyond, I think, what we tended to be doing. So we have been working on a prototype with one of our authors. So looking at both, how you can use the 3D objects in order to enhance the learning content and kind of make it spring off the page, quite literally, but also looking at how we can use assets like audio. So we've got a section here actually about the heartbeat and how much easier it makes it for a student to kind of engage with that content if you don't have a friend next to you to go and listen to their heartbeat. You can actually have just a recorded heartbeat, and that means that you can kind of interact with the content a bit differently. We also, I guess like many publishers, have invested in developing a range of different assets over the years. And so you can use AR as a way of kind of accessing those assets. So like the heart dissection video that Eirik identified earlier. And so we looked at it as a way of both, looking at how we can thread assets through a page, but also how we can change the content of the page and change it so that the textbook interacts much more with the digital content. I think I'm about at my time now, so I shall cease at that point. Amazing.
Thank you, Lewis. That's brilliant. And yes, the use of the word skunkworks took me back to another, and your mention of PET is already sending shivers down my spine at how close March next year already will be. Can I just briefly thank Adiba for your question. We will just address those questions at the end, but as you can see, he's dropped Adiba's dropped the question there into the Q&A. So please do keep those questions coming, and we will pick up those questions and address them with everybody on the panel session later. Thank you, Lewis. That was brilliant. And we're going to fly over to Belgium now and talk to Els about her work at Plantain. Els, if you can begin with a brief intro, and then the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much, Jonathan. I'm going to try to do it as fluently as you did, Lewis. So let me see how I do this and share the screen and start talking in English. But I think I got it. No, I didn't get it yet. Hold on. Let me see. There we go. I hope you guys can see my screen. If not, somebody will probably tell me.
All good.
So yeah, I'm gonna try, and I'm gonna start with thanking Ludenzo as well for inviting me as a speaker for this webinar. My name is Els Van Vaerenbergh. I work at a Belgian educational publishing house, Plantain, and I've been an employee there for 13 years already. We develop learning solutions for students of all ages, ranging from kindergarten all the way up to higher education, but with a current focus mainly on primary education and secondary education, as you can see. My own focus for the last few years has been on sciences for secondary education. So I've been making publications for students from 13 to 18 years old. Plantain has started, as all publishing companies, I'm sure, as a mainly paper-oriented publishing company. And in the last few years, we've been evolving into a more digital company as well, a blended publishing company. We started 70 years ago, but we're constantly evolving, and it's really a business that is growing and growing into more and more of a fully blended publishing house. As you can see here, we're providing content for students and teachers, but also for parents and schools as well. On the top right side, you can see an example from Scoodle Play, which is our learning platform for primary education. And the teachers also get a lot of extra content through their e-kits online. So we're trying to provide them with as much extra content as we can digitally as well. With Informat, our part of our company, we also provide them with support for school management and administration as well. So that's mainly what Plantain does, to give you a brief overview. As a Belgian company, we're part of an international holding called Infinitas Learning. We're one of 4 international branches, so I don't only have colleagues in Belgium, but as well in Sweden and the Netherlands and Portugal. And in Belgium, we have both offices in the Dutch-speaking part and in the French-speaking part of the country. So we're operating as one of the leading educational publishing houses there with, right now, I think 150 employees, but I might be off with a few because we just integrated Averbode, which is an extra publishing house in Belgium. So that's to give you an overview of what Plantain is doing. And as I said, we've started as a paper product company, but in recent years, we're evolving into a more blended company where we look for ways to integrate that paper and that digital into that one perfect blend. Looking for that perfect blend is something that takes some time and some hard work, trial and error as well, and a lot of research. So as a publisher, it's my main focus to find the concept or produce a concept where the digital and the paper can blend together perfectly. But like you all know, obviously, it's a continuously evolving market where the digital needs are growing and growing every day. So it definitely keeps us on our toes to make the right decisions there. And we want to be both in the forefront, right there with the early adapters. And at the same time, it's important that we make sure that every teacher is on board with it. So that they can all adapt to that more digital environment at his or her own speed. So yeah, we also need to make sure that the blended solution that we offer is manageable in a classroom, that's very important for us to take into account. Most of the time there's 20 plus students in front of that teacher. For secondary educations, it's 20 plus teenagers in front of that teacher who are mainly more tech savvy than the teacher is themselves. So it's a big challenge for everybody to give them the right tools and give them the right ways to deal with that situation. So it's important for us to have very intuitive solutions that are very easy to operate, and at the same time gives the teacher time to teach their subject and teach their content that they have to teach their students. So it's a tightrope that they are always constantly working on. All of that to say that it's not an easy task for us as a publishing company, but also not for the teacher. And I'm also sure that there's not one perfect blend. It's something that's constantly evolving and evolving. So we're doing a lot of research on the topic. We're continuously researching what is important for teachers and students to help them in their learning journey. In this study that you can see that we carried out in October of last year, we asked the teachers in which phase of that teaching journey they need the most digital tools or digital materials to help them with their job. And as you can see, teachers want digital help during the entirety of their teaching journey, but they consider it to be the most important in the instructional phase, but also in the phase of remediation for their students. So as a blended publishing house, we've already been working on that problem and how to solve that problem for our customers. We've developed Scoodle, which is a learning platform. Scoodle Play was for primary education. Scoodle is the one for secondary education that I've been working on with my colleagues. And we've come up with a lot of digital solutions already that are not AR related. So I'm just gonna try to give you a brief overview of what we're doing in Scoodle right now. We started off with the training phase, which is the easiest phase to implement digital tools with for both students and teachers. You can see an example here of one of our adaptive learning paths that we've included in our materials right now. It makes it easy for the teacher and the students to work on a good level, or for the students to work on their own level, and for the teachers to follow up with their students on the different levels. The adaptive learning path makes it possible for students to start exercising on the basic level. And according to their score, they get to a higher level or a lower level with the next set of exercises. It's a system that guides them through it, so it's easy for them to just follow through and to work individually, and for the teacher to follow which student needs a little bit more help, maybe. So that's what we've been doing on the training phase. We've also added some drilling exercises last year with a module called Slim Stampen. It's mainly used in the language department where students have to study their vocabulary, but I've also used it in my chemistry books to study the chemical elements. So it's something that we are trying to incorporate wherever possible. We're also looking at the other phases of the learning journey. The instructional phase is one where teachers needed more digital tools than they have right now. So we've been adding movies and flip the classroom videos, as you can see here. For the science books, it's been a tradition for a few years already to be filming all the experiments one-on-one, so that the teachers can show them in class when they don't have the time to do the actual experiment, or that the students can rewatch it whenever they're studying their course. And the flip the classroom videos are mainly to introduce new concepts. They're explained very concise so that students can easily review what teacher has been saying in class, or that they can actually start looking at the videos beforehand and be in class more prepared, which is always the goal, I guess, for teachers. So all of that to say that we've been working on handing out very good digital tools for the teachers, but the AR component of the whole game is very new for us. We're taking steps to strengthen our digital offering. And that's when I came in contact with Ludenso. They provide us with a way of offering that AR component that we haven't had in our books yet. So I have to admit, I'm a bit of a newbie here, but we've conducted some user testing in the last couple weeks. I went to 4 schools for completely different backgrounds and levels of students. So it was interesting to see the AR in reality with these students and teachers. I talked to a couple of students and I let them work with the 3D models mainly and look at their reactions and see what they thought of it. It was very fun to see them in action and see them explore the possibilities. It was very funny to see that the students were almost always very quick to go with the app that Ludenso is providing. They're very enthusiastic, both teachers and students, but students were always very quick to go through the app and through the motions. So it was very fun to see that they got the hang of it right away. The teachers were also very enthusiastic, but it took a little bit longer for them to work out how the app worked. And they had a bit more questions about the practical use of it in the classroom. But looking at the way that their students were adapting to it and looking at their enthusiasm and their motivation, like Eirik was saying, improving like right away, you notice that the teachers were already looking at the added pedagogical value that those 3D models could have in the classroom. Like right now in science class, it's always very important to make the invisible visible. And they do that right now with physical models, a model of the heart, for example. But 3D models in AR give us like a world of opportunities that they have never seen before. So the teachers were quick to notice the opportunities that the 3D and AR will have on their textbooks that they have in their hand. So yeah, we're excited to see what the options are, and we're planning on adding the AR in a few books in the coming school year. So we'll keep doing surveys and keep researching the benefits. But for that first small user testing that I've been doing, it makes me really hopeful that AR is a real true enrichment of the learning environment of the teachers and the students. So yeah, excited to see what is ahead of us.
Thanks, Els. That's brilliant. Great to hear, and thank you to our 3 presenters this afternoon. Thank you also to the 3 questions that we've received. Do keep dropping them into the Q&A function there, and we'll work through these questions now in the time that we have left. Lewis, the first question is one for you. This question comes from Adiba, who asks, how do Cambridge plan to modify the book to signpost the AR enriched pages? And I guess, Els, that also could apply. Perhaps you could offer your perspective on that as well. But Lewis, it was addressed to you, so I'll give you the first opportunity to respond.
Thanks. That's a really good question, actually, and it's one that we kind of spent a bit of time when we're working out what to do with this prototype, working through, because we know obviously that you can use the app in a way that you don't need a clear kind of signpost on the page, but you really want to make sure that teachers and students know that there's something there to use. So we did it in 2 ways. Firstly, as I mentioned earlier, by kind of modifying the text and making sure that there's an explicit reference to something to do with the content that's enhanced. But we also stuck an icon in the corner. So it's the simplest way of kind of flagging, hey, there's something here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Els, for you?
Yeah, I think we're going to do it in the same way. we asked the students and the teachers as well that we had the user testing with, and they all said, oh, we just want to see an icon, and then we know what to do. It's something that I'm always apprehensive about, using too many icons in a book, but apparently students and teachers don't really mind it, as long as it's clear for them which page they need to scan, and then they can go ahead with it. So yeah.
Eirik, is there anything else you'd add to that based on your experience with other publishers?
We've definitely seen a lot more usage for the books that have signposts in them in comparison to those that do not have it. But I think the biggest difference is if there's some information on the front of the book or on the book itself. So if you are going to retrofit a book, that means that you're not putting in any signposts in the book itself. That also works quite well as long as you have a QR code or something on the front page of the book saying this book is AR enhanced, make this book come to life. That is a big difference towards not having anything at all, which is the worst option. So there's 3 levels there where the 2 at the top is significantly better than having nothing at all.
We've got 2 other follow-up questions from Kirsten of Cambridge International North America. Eirik, I'll come to you first this time. Kirsten asked a question about accessibility, and I guess one of the challenges, one of the charges that's placed against the use of AR and VR in education purposes is that, what can it offer to students who might be visually or hearing impaired? And if we take accessibility to its broadest sense, you know, how do we ensure that all students, not just those at well-funded institutions, are able to gain access to these enrichments and these improvements? So, Eirik, your thoughts on that, and then Lewis and Els, I'll come to you next.
Can you hear me better now? I heard it. Great. So I think one of the key challenges for AR so far has been that it has not been very accessible, because you had needed the newest tech and it wasn't working for half of the class. That's being very bad in terms of accessibility, not only for those that have visual or hearing aids, but just for every student in a classroom. And that's changed dramatically now, just based on the technology readiness level in the classroom. And also by just implementing simple things like, if you don't have an AR compatible phone, you should be able to see those 3D models in a 3D viewer or on a computer. So there's a way to alleviate that so that you can ensure that every student will have some sort of experience as the other students. So that's the one thing. In terms of how this is working with students that have hearing or visible disadvantages, we're actually doing a research project now with Norsk EdTech, or NR, would be easier to say. And one of the main aims of that project is to investigate the barriers for XR technology for students with disabilities or various functional abilities. So I'll be happy to share that with you, Kirsten, and maybe in a later webinar as well, what the research findings will conclude with.
Great. And Els, let's come to you next. Given was this a factor in your research?
Yeah, the accessibility of like having a phone in class was one of our main questions as well. Like, is this something that all teachers are okay with their students having their phones out and using their phones? And for the small user testing that I did, it seemed like it wasn't that big of a deal. I went to a few different levels, like types of schools with people or students with different backgrounds, and everybody was pretty confident that using that phone or having a phone at their disposal was not going to be a big problem. And like Eirik said, if we can also add it onto our digital books and have the teacher show the 3D enhancement or asset on their screen in front of the class, I think that would be the best solution for everybody to actually have access to it. But I think the wow factor for me and for the students that I witnessed was having their own phone and having the opportunity to manipulate the 3D model and look at it from different angles. So I think that's the main wow factor that we have to take into account to improve the learning experience for the student.
Lewis, I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to ask you a different question, which has been asked in the chat as well. Kirsten asks another question, which I think is a really interesting one, which is about the use of AR and other XR technologies as supplementary. So I guess the question is asked whether we foresee XR and AR content taking the lead. So, I mean, what's your perspective on supplementary or lead? Do you think is that a fair assessment, and is that going to change moving forward?
So I'm going to try and join those two questions up, actually,
Very
because
neat.
I think the key thing for me is, at the moment, certainly AR or XR or whichever, digital often is it's a supplementary, certainly in the kind of state school system, and certainly within the kind of markets that Cambridge Partnership for Education works within, because we need to make sure that there is a kind of a minimum viable product that covers the whole curriculum that's available for all students. So at the moment, I'm kind of seeing this as an enrichment. It's something that kind of supplements and enhances the learning, but it doesn't presently kind of seem like there's an opportunity for it to become the whole learning. So that's kind of where I sit at the moment.
Els, for you?
Yeah, I think I agree with Lewis. I think it's, for us at least right now, it's definitely a supplement to what we're already offering, both in our digital platform and in our books. But I see some shift happening, especially when I looked at the students working with the app. I saw that they were 10 times more excited about looking at a video in the app than they were with clicking through the digital platform and going to the video and then looking at it on their screen of their computer. So there's probably going to be a big boost in the next couple of years, but I don't think it's ever going to completely take over the learning experience, just VR or AR.
And Eirik, in a couple of brief sentences, what's your perspective?
I think it's going to take a long time before we have fully VR immersed learning platforms that is taking over for the current platform. Actually, I think augmented reality will play a beautiful role in blending the physical and digital resources in the next decade to come. Also at the point where we have those glasses that looks more like the ones you're wearing now. And I think transforming the physical book to becoming a digital portal to a universe of quizzes and articles and videos and 3D models, that's going to be the real powerful thing in the next generation of textbooks that we will see in the decades to come. So that's my short answer.
Very good, thank you. I'm conscious of time, so one final question, and I'm going to ask you all to kind of limit to kind of two very quick summary statements. Lewis and Els, from a publisher's perspective, and Eirik, from the various you can comment please on from the other publishers that you work with. Els, you touched on kind of bringing teachers with you and getting teachers engaged and excited about this. How does it work within a publisher? How do you change the mindset of your colleagues and your staff to get behind these new innovations? So I guess in a couple of sentences, can you just give delegates on the call just a couple of quick tips about how you drive this change internally and how you bring your colleagues across your publishing businesses with you? Lewis, you go.
Okay, so for us, so if you're bringing teachers on board, you really need to make sure they know what it is that they're getting and how to make best use of it. So, really kind of think about the onboarding materials that you have for teachers who are going to be using your courses. And bringing staff at Cambridge on that journey with you, those people who are wedded perhaps to print rather than digital or AR. How do you bring them? Show them the best way of getting people on board, the best way of getting people to understand the way it works is to show them. Okay, Els, for you? Yeah, I'm right in the middle of getting my colleagues on board of this whole project in Plantain. So, and I can agree with Lewis. I just showed them 2 weeks ago. I did the same demo as I did with the teachers and the students in the classroom and show them what the possibilities were. And I think that's the main way to get enthusiasm going with my colleagues as well. Eirik, that gives you the last word for engaging teachers and engaging colleagues and publishers to use the technology.
Yeah, I think seeing is believing, just in line with what Lewis and Els is saying. A short shout out to Rob Heathcote from PG Online, and I know he's here, and and he's done a fantastic job of showing and telling this to both his other colleagues and also the schools starting to use this. So thanks for that, and thank you very much for coming, Els and Lewis from Ludenso. Appreciate it.
Great. And thank you from me. And on behalf of everybody joining our webinar today, thank you to Ingrid for all the work that she's done behind the scenes. Thank you to Lewis, to Els, and to Eirik for speaking today and for answering the questions so clearly and transparently. Sorry. As I mentioned, we'll be sharing the webinar recording and associated follow-up with everybody shortly. If you've got any questions or would like to find out more about Ludenso, then connect with Ingrid and Eirik via simple first name @ludenso.com. And you can obviously connect, and would encourage you to do so, with all of the speakers via their profiles on LinkedIn. But to everybody out there who joined the webinar today, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. We hope that you found it interesting and hugely valuable. Thank you again to our keynote speakers. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we hope to see you again soon at Ludenso's next Future of Textbook webinar, which will be taking place in early 2023. Look out for that. Thank you very much indeed, and hope to see you again soon. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.